Hello, my name is Teresita Blanco, and today I wanted to read you a little excerpt from my book series, Saturnastra. The series is already done. It has about 14 books already written. So this is just one of them. You can read them in any order, except for here. He's like a two-parter. You can read them in any order and you get a whole different picture about Saturnastra because mainly the books are about the world. The world is what's important, not too much the little people that inhabit them. So I hope that I created a fun world for you to inhabit and enjoy, and the stories of the people that live in it. Alright, so without further ado, I'm gonna read you chapter 1 of the book Nalini, which is the second one in the series. Chapter 1. Idyllic Childhood. How do I begin? Beginning is so hard. My story began in the forest of beginning. I call it like that because the forest did not have a name per se. Thus the name I gave was more for pharmaceutical purposes, as my mother used to say. That stage of my life was more or less idyllic. Via my older brother's bravado, he had convinced a lot of us to help him save the world. We, being an immature motley crew, followed him blindly to Saturnastra to help him achieve his lofty goal. After discussing our course of action and the problems at hand, we decided that it would be best to explore the continent first and see what evil there was to be found. Since there were 13 of us, we decided that such a large group would attract too much attention. Each time we would try to interact with the locals, they would always run away. My older sister reasoned that it would be easier to blend into the societies we would encounter if we traveled separately. I do not mind, since even when we were apart, we were somehow together. That was how strong our bond was. After I left the forest, I had the great fortune of not meeting any humanoid beings for almost 5 years. During my first year alone, I spent it traveling. I traveled down south to warmer regions. Eventually, I found a tropical forest to my liking. For some reason, I sensed a strong source of corruption in the beautiful forest. There was something most wicked hidden within. It was all around me, and it followed me like a shadow. Since I had arrived at the source, I took some time to experience my surroundings. At first, I took time to examine the plant life. Never before had I seen such a wide variety of flowers. Technically, I already knew about the flowers, the plants, and the animals. However, I had yet to experience nature in the real world. The first thing that delighted me about the flower was their texture. Their petals felt soft and delicate to my touch. The first flower I plucked was a beautiful white lily. I removed its soft, delicate white petals one by one and ate them. I felt its life essence inside me. I felt bad for killing the poor flower needlessly. I took its remains to a clearing in the woods. This clearing was around a wide, shallow lake. Upon closer inspection, I noticed that the center ran abruptly deep. In its crystalline water, harmless freshwater fishes used to prance around. I gave a water barrier to the flower I slew. With disdain, a large trout rose to the surface and ate the remains of my flower. The fish glared at me and said, "Don't you have any bread?" I dipped my head inside the water and returned his glare and rude remark with my own. "I wasn't trying to feed you, stupid fish. I simply wanted to give a water barrier to the flower I killed." The fish's eyes seemed to sneer when he responded, "What a silly little girl." The fish departed afterwards. I took my head out of the water and took his words to heart. Indeed, I was acting rather stupid, getting worked up by the death of a flower. Even so, I was never able to pick a flower ever again. It got to such a point that I felt bad for stepping on grass. I got over myself pretty quickly when I heard a melodious song. The sound came from deeper in the forest. After walking for some hours, I discovered a beautiful garden. The garden had a large variety of white flowers. Some of the more prominent flowers were roses, peonies, carnations, tulips, and Gemini daisies. Within this garden, about 20 or more little elf girls were playing. They were singing some very beautiful songs while braiding their hair with flowers. To anyone else, this would have appeared as the most beautiful sight imaginable. However, as I felt bad for the flowers, soon they would wither and die. All that their short lives had amounted to was spent as hair ornaments. For some reason, I did not feel like approaching the girls, despite the fact that they seemed harmless enough. Around sunset, I got bored of watching their games. I returned to my neck of the woods. I lay down on the grassy fields. Around me flew the shiny blue spores of the flowers. Something about the soil made the white flowers of this forest shimmer. Slowly the warm wind flew over the river, causing ripples. The sound of nature were soothing me to sleep. While dozing off, I felt 2 tiny feet on my nose. When I opened my eyes, I saw a shiny golden tiny shell. She could not have been taller than a few inches. Her wings were brownish with all black patterns like the heliconius butterflies. She wore a dress made from white plumerian flowers. Each time she gave a tiny step, you could see the golden center of the flower's petals. Her long brown hair was combed in a braid. I felt her barefoot feet work their way up my forehead. She still thought I was asleep. When she was sitting on my forehead, she poked my closed eyelids and asked, "Are you awake?" "Not really," I said, stroking gently her tiny head with my pinky. She hugged my finger with her tiny hands and smiled. "I've been watching you for some time. You are not like the others who live in the forest," she said, petting my short white hair. "Thank you," I said naively. I let her out. "What's your name?" "My kind doesn't use names. We each know who we are, therefore we never needed names, and you do not have a name?" She asked with curiosity. "Not really. I haven't decided on a name," I said, closing my eyes again. While dozing off, I asked the tiny fairy, "How am I to call you should I wish to see you again?" I felt the fairy departing. When I opened my eyes, she was flying above me. In a soft, melodious voice, she said, "My kind has the gift of song. We each have our own melodies. I will teach you my own tune, and if you play it, I will know you wish to see me, but be warned. The elves do not look too kindly upon our kind. If you anger them, it would anger them if you sing a fairy song." The fairy sang her tune. From beneath my robes, I took out a blue crystal flute. It was a gift that my mother had given me. I played her song. The echo created by my flute was felt across the forest. The deer, the owls, elves, fairies, and all stopped to listen. Every being was enthralled by its sweet melody. When I stopped playing, they went back to their nightly routines. The fairy departed after I finished playing her song. I felt myself completely alone after she left. The wind had died a few hours later, and with it the sound of the forest. Even the water in the lake was perfectly still. For some odd reason, I felt as if the darkness of the forest was staring back at me. I felt a cold sweat run down my spine. I gathered my robes around me and I entered the water. Should anything invisible attack me, it would be forced to make a sound inside the water. I waited inside the lake for what seemed like hours. My attention was distracted by a tiny frog swimming close to my face. Its sticky tiny legs got stuck on the tip of my nose. From the water, the tiny frog climbed to my forehead, and then it hopped back into the water. In a soft, tiny voice, it said, "What are you looking at, Ribbit?" Not daring to speak, I responded without emitting a sound. "There is something in the woods." With a curiosity, the frog gazed into the darkness, confused, and said, "There is nothing there." "Are you certain? Then why did everything get so quiet?" I asked. "Stupid girl, afraid of silence," said the frog, departing. A cold wind swept overhead, and the forest came alive again. With the regular nightly sounds returning, I felt myself safe. For days I felt tense whenever that strange, ominous silence came. Eventually, whenever the silence came, I would play my flute to beat back the silence. For some reason, the music made me feel safe. It took me half a year to get used to the strange silence that came by from time to time. I felt its calming presence soothing. After my first year in the forest, I knew the place like the back of my hand. I got to know better the other fairy creatures and their melodies. Aside from the fairy, there lived a newt or water fairy in the lake, 2 fauns, and a playful nymph. The one I saw most often was a newt. She would rise to the surface of the water whenever no elves were nearby. Whenever she came, she said nothing. She would simply stare at me with her big, wide blue eyes. For some reason, everyone in the forest both feared and hated the elves. They avoided them like they were the freaking plague. One day, I decided to have my first close encounter with an elf. The elf I decided to meet was a beautiful blonde maiden. She was only 2 years my senior. She had a very delicate frame and nimble limbs. Unlike most elves, she had beautiful emerald eyes. What I liked best about her was her beautiful singing voice. Her melody brought new life to the forest. Even her own kind used to admire her beauty. Well, I think this is enough for now. I hope you found what I read to you of Nalini amusing. Bye-bye, and God bless.